Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life Community Calendar at ncwlife.com.
Hi, welcome to Life with Lisa Bradshaw. I am here with Captain Jim West. I asked him to come in. I had a recent hit and run accident and I wasn't exactly sure how to handle it. I was hit. I didn't hit someone. So the nice thing about the show is if I have a question and I have someone in our community who can answer it, I can ask them to come in and talk about it on the show. So thanks for being here, Captain Jim West.
Well, thanks, Lisa,
Wenatchee
for having
Police
me.
Department.
Appreciate it.
So here's what happened. Well, first of all, you know that you were coming to talk about the hit and run specifically, because
Yes, I did.
there are people who don't know what to do
True.
when it happens. And I would be one of them.
Okay.
So I was in Yakima, Washington, and it was evening, like 8:30 or so, and I came to a very busy intersection, and I had stopped. So it wasn't, I wasn't going fast. He wasn't going fast, and he hit me from behind, and he had a huge truck, and I have a smaller sedan, and when it happened, he didn't get out of the truck. And at first I thought, well, let me get my camera and I'm going to take a picture of his license plate because he seems kind of weird and he might drive off. And I thought, oh, there's no license plate there, which made me a little more leery. But also I thought it's probably not a good idea to go taking a picture of his car. I should probably try to talk to him. But he didn't get out of the car. He didn't ask who I was. He didn't check the damage. He just sat there. So then I said, are you getting out? And he just kind of looked at me. I think he was drunk, perhaps. I don't know. You'd have to be, if you're in your right mind, you're going to get out, see if there's damage to the car, damage to the person. And so I immediately called my friends who had driven ahead of me and said, please come back, because I'm here by myself. And then I called 911 and said, been in an accident. They asked me if I needed an ambulance. I didn't. And then they said there would be a policeman coming, but there was something else more pressing going on at the moment, so it might take a little bit. So I'm sitting there in my car, and he looks at me. I look back at him, and I say again, are you getting out? And he just sat there, and then he started to drive away. He had to switch lanes and get in the right-hand lane and turn. So I thought, okay, well, we're going to pull over into this parking lot. So I followed him to I followed him thinking we were going to the parking lot, and he drove away. And he was too far away for me to see his license plate. So the police eventually came. I was pretty shook up, mostly because my son was leaving a baseball game, and I was afraid he was going to see me there with a police car and a car and not know what had happened. So once I reached him, let him know I was okay in case their bus drove by and saw that. That was kind of what shook me up the most. I didn't want him to worry. But then we waited, and the policeman came, and basically there was kind of nothing that could be done. There were traffic lights in the four-way stop that I would think could have seen the whole thing, but they said those were city cameras and they don't utilize the city cameras. And then they said there was a fast food restaurant that they could try and get some of the footage from. To my knowledge, nothing. And then I have to pay for a higher deductible on my insurance because we didn't have any information about the driver. So there's the what do you do, there's the fear issue, there's the fact that if someone's not getting out, they're probably trying to hide something and they might not stick around. So what, in that case, start to finish, do you think I did right or wrong, or I could have done differently to try and avoid having to be involved in the hit and run and perhaps making that individual more responsible?
Well, I mean, there's really no real right and wrong that you did in there. I mean, the only wrong things that could happen, and which you didn't do, but is sometimes in a hit and run, people who are the victim of it will try to chase down the person that hit them and to try to catch them. And when they're doing that, sometimes they cause accidents on their own. So it's not a safe thing to do, which you didn't do.
Yeah.
First thing to do is if you're involved in an accident is go ahead and call 911 to get it reported so the dispatcher knows to get law enforcement en route, and if an ambulance needs to get en route for any injuries. There was no problem with you getting out as far as make sure you're safe, not getting out into traffic and that kind of thing so you don't get hit. But to take pictures, is a good thing because in your instance, if there was a license plate, at least you probably would have got a picture of that and you could have relayed that information to the dispatcher, because it's extremely important that, especially in a hit and run, if we can get a license plate number or a vehicle description, vehicle color is important. A lot of people forget the color. I'm not sure why that is, but that happens. And all those things are good for us to know from the dispatchers, so we could try to locate the vehicle that hit you.
I knew the color. I knew the make because I looked at it through my rearview mirror while I was waiting for him to get out. I sat there a good couple of minutes. When I didn't see the license plate, then I got a little more nervous because to me, most people have a license plate on the front. I don't know. That didn't necessarily mean he was a bad guy hiding from the police, but if I'd have seen the license plate, I would have taken a picture of it.
Right.
But that kind of raised my senses to be a little bit more alarmed, the fact that I didn't have one. And I thought, well, if I go take a picture of his truck, he might really get upset. But I didn't pull off the road, and I wasn't sure if that's something you're supposed to do. The parking lot to the right was pretty dark, and I was concerned about pulling off to the road with somebody who seemed disoriented.
Sure.
So can you stay where you are until police come?
If you
and
feel,
let traffic go around you?
Yeah, if you feel safer where you're at, if it's more lit than where you can park, to get off the road and then say where you're going to park is dark and you're not comfortable parking over there, especially if there's not a whole lot of traffic,
Right.
then by all means go ahead and stay where you're at.
Okay.
It's not going to be crucial as far as the traffic investigation goes if you stay in that spot or if you don't.
Okay.
So sometimes, if you're in an accident and it's causing more of a traffic issue with you staying right there and you're safe and you feel safe to pull off the road, it's okay to do that.
Okay.
That's not going to mess up any investigation of any sort. For you, with this guy not getting out of the car, sometimes you got to follow your instinct, and it seems like you did from what you're describing to me. That, and it's okay for you to go ahead and get back in your car to be in a little bit more of a safe zone.
Yeah.
And just be on the phone with the dispatcher, and go ahead and wait on the phone with the dispatcher until law enforcement gets there, and then you can go ahead and hang up.
Okay.
As far as the lights go or the cameras, I know that there are a lot of places that have traffic cameras, and for example, George Cellar Bridge on the south end, there's traffic cameras up there that are controlled by the state, but it's like real-time video. It's not being recorded. So there's nothing for us to go back and get video from to see. So
Are those the type of lights that you get a ticket if you run it, or they take those pictures? What are they there for?
They're just so you can go, like if you go onto the state website and you can see a webcam to see how the traffic looks. So
it's like looking at the snow on Snoqualmie Pass?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when he drives off, and now I'm here with a police officer, I haven't heard anything from the investigation. I haven't, other than the form they gave me, and I called and checked for a couple of days. My guess is if I haven't heard anything in a couple of days, I'm probably not going to. So in that situation, you're just kind of going to take that hit and run.
Well, this is what I would suggest. If you're involved in an accident and an officer arrives and is taking the report, you should be getting a case number for the accident.
I did get that on a piece of paper.
And go ahead and ask the officer on top of that if you could have their business card.
Oh, okay.
So you know exactly which officer came to the scene to investigate the accident. Sometimes I know you can get on those accident forms that the officer will scribble their name and probably their ID number of some sort. Sometimes you can't read it, especially if it's my penmanship.
I do recall he did give me his business card. He was a very nice gentleman and very helpful. I was a little shook up, like I said. I wasn't injured. I just had never been in that situation before. So,
well, it's upsetting.
Yeah, it is upsetting. And I think he was just he was a realist. He just said, well, I'll go check the fast food camera, but chances are, without a license plate or more specific description, that's just the way it's going to go. So the other thing that, is there any other suggestion you have in that situation?
No, I would say the only other thing I'd suggest is that go ahead and call the police department, and ask for that officer, refer to that case number, and see if you can get some follow-up and see if there was anything else that was done on the case. There's nothing wrong with people calling to find out.
Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, my girlfriends and I, when we were talking about the hit and run situation, one of them told me the story of being pulled over in a remote area. She had a new car, and I guess she had a tail light out, which you wouldn't think you would in a brand new car.
Sure.
She hadn't had it very long. So she wasn't speeding, all these things that you go through this checklist in your head when you are getting pulled over. Sometimes you know why you're getting pulled over, and sometimes maybe you don't.
Correct.
So she didn't see any reason. Current registration, tags on her car, working lights, all of those things. Wasn't speeding. And so she was really reluctant to pull over because she was in a remote area, and it was hard to see the identifiable police car. It was a darker sedan. And so in that situation, what is your advice? How do you handle that I know there's no black or white answer to that.
Yeah.
So just some,
Sure.
how you would handle that if you were pulling someone over even in a remote area.
I think in that
What would be your
situation,
expectation?
more likely than not, it's going to be an officer that's pulling you over for some reason.
Right.
But we all know that there's stories out there of people who are pretending to be an officer and pulling people over, and then, who knows what happens from there. That those do happen, so I can't sit here and tell you 100% of the time that's going to be an officer that has a legitimate reason for stopping you. But with that in mind, if you're in a remote area and you're unsure, my suggestion is that get on your phone, hopefully you have cell service, and go ahead and call 911 and just say, hey, I'm on this area, I'm being pulled over, I just want to make sure that this is an officer that's stopping me. Now, I would also put your hazard lights on. I would slow down, that you're coming to a stop, because if it is an officer that is really pulling over and you're not stopping, then you could be in a lot more trouble than whatever the first reason was for them to stop you. But it's okay to be concerned if something's telling you that something doesn't seem right. It is okay to call 911 and to confirm.
Okay.
And it's okay to stay on 911 until that officer comes up to your window and approaches, and just tell the officer, look, I was unsure you're an officer. I was calling your dispatch just to make sure.
Okay. That's good advice, because it ended up being a police officer, so that's good news, right?
Yes.
And she did pull over. When we come back, let's talk a bit about the things that are happening right here in our community, the good stuff.
Okay.
So you can spread some good news as well. We're talking with Captain Jim West of the Wenatchee Police Department. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.
Hi, we're back. We're talking with Captain Jim West of the Wenatchee Police Department. He was giving us great advice about what to do if we're involved in a hit and run, which I was a couple of months ago. So thanks for clearing that up. Now we want to talk about crime mapping. What is that?
Yeah, what we've done was we've taken a program that's a website program. It's called crimemapping.com, and what it does is it shows all the crimes and calls that have been happening in the city of Wenatchee. And people can go onto the internet, go to crimemapping.com, you put Wenatchee into the search, and it'll take you to a map of Wenatchee, and you can search your area, your neighborhood, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on as far as calls, crime, anything like that.
So it's not. So it's if it happened yesterday, you'll know, or how long does it take to get the information posted?
Usually it takes about 12 hours of a cycle time from the time that it happens to the time that you can see it on the website.
And what will people see on the website? Just a report, or?
Well, what you'll see a map, and it'll have icons, and you can click on the icon and it'll tell you what type of crime it is. Like, for example, burglary, you click on it and it'll tell you, what block the burglary occurred. And,
Wow.
And date and time, of course.
Now, some people will get as obsessed with this as social media, I think, right? It's kind of like people who like to listen to scanners.
Yes.
It's kind of cool to know what's going on as it's happening, or even with a 12-hour delay.
Yeah.
So what is your purpose for having it? What is the intention of a police officer in a police department to make sure it's available to citizens?
Well, I think it's important for everybody to know what's going on in their city, and for you to know where crimes are occurring. Let's say, for example, you know that you're living in an area or you work in an area, and there's been a lot of, let's say, car prowls. And let's say there was one time you were in that area during that time frame and you happened to see something, and you may have seen something that might lead to the suspect that committed those crimes. That would show that, you know, something did happen that time and place where I was, and I can call the police department and give them that information. That might help solve the crime.
Now, how do people find out, how do people get that information? Is it crime, you said crimemapping.com?
Right, crimemapping.com, and you'll also be able to link to it from our Facebook page.
And so then when people do it, is there a way for them to report anything that's happened, or it's just strictly that it's being reported to them?
You can just call us directly, or we are working on having also a tip line availability to the program, to where you can just click on a tip line and you can type us some information.
Is this something that's happening throughout the country or the state, or is it just right here in Wenatchee?
It's all over the country. I know the Yakima area uses it exclusively, and I think we are the first ones in the Wenatchee Valley to do it.
So when I was involved in the hit and run, if it was mapped and somebody saw me sitting there and knew the guy in the truck, or saw the truck that was sitting there and driving off, they would have a way to get that information.
Absolutely.
You could say, I was involved in an accident, I saw an accident, and go back and even look the next day and see what that accident was.
Yep.
Then you'd find out it was a hit and run and not just a regular accident.
Exactly. You'd be able to find out the date, time of the accident, case number, everything.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings us full circle to what could come of a program like this in a situation with a hit and run or something like it.
Yes, absolutely.
Concerned citizens. Thanks for being here.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
providing
Appreciate
such
it.
a wealth of information. You're welcome here anytime.
Yeah, I'll come back anytime.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to share the story of a wonderful little girl who is doing great work for the police officers in her life.
Have a fun video you'd like to see featured on NCW Life? Email us at newsphotos@ncwlife.com.
Hi, we're talking with Megan O'Grady from Florida via Skype. Thanks for being here, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
I found your story through Facebook, a viral post that somebody shared with me. You have an organization called Blue Line Bears. Can you tell us a bit about what you do with those bears?
Our job is to help children of fallen police officers by making teddy bears out of the law enforcement officer's shirt.
And was that your idea?
Yes.
So tell me about that. How long ago was that? How old were you? And how did you come up with it?
I came up with it at the end of last year, and then I ended up actually starting this year in January, in the beginning of the year. And we started with the first people.
And so how did you come up with the idea? What was your thought process on that?
Well, I had to write an essay over the summer, and it was titled This I Believe, and we had to talk about we had to talk about something that we believe in, and I chose to talk about police officers because my dad is a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And then it eventually developed into, instead of just talking about it, I wanted to actually do something about it and try to help others.
Were you crafty girl? Had you sewn anything before?
No.
So these are pretty labor intensive. We're going to show some pictures here now of a few of the bears that you've done. It's a lot of work, start to finish.
Yes.
How long do they take you to make?
On average, they take 3 to 4 days a piece.
And people started to hear about you, and they send you the uniform of a loved one, a fallen officer.
Yes.
And you take it from there.
Yes.
So tell me a bit about how it's grown and how that story became something that we heard about here in Wenatchee, Washington.
It started off as something small, and only really people that were friends with my dad and my mom were really aware of it. And then eventually it developed into people all over the world sharing it after we delivered the first 7 bears, and then it's grown since then. And
So do you have volunteers that help you? That's a lot of work.
No, just my family does it. So, yeah.
So what grade are you in?
I'm a freshman in high school.
You know, a lot of times we talk about students volunteering throughout school, through high school especially. It's always the goal to be volunteering so that looks good on a college application, if that's the goal. But I was thinking about you today when preparing for the show and how important it is that we send a message to students to do what's on their heart to do, to not just volunteer somewhere for the sake of volunteering, but to do something, like you said, that means something to you because your dad's a police officer. So I commend you for doing the work you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So how can people, so we also will show a picture, there's that you receive these uniforms from all over, and then they entrust you with them to make the bear and send it back. And I mean, are you open to receiving as many as you can, or you are a student too, your family's busy, everybody works, goes to school. Yeah. How do you make time, and is there a limit?
There's definitely a struggle to find time, but we do work around it and we figure out ways to finish the bears. Like sometimes if the embroidery is going, I'll work on my homework so I can get that done, but also get some of the bear stuff done. Or if I'm doing something else, like I try to just manage my time as much as possible. And then my grandma does help me with it. We're looking to get some people to help us now. We're looking at to friends and family who can also help.
I bet there's some groups, women's groups and things, like if you think about the women who knit scarves and do different things, make blankets for babies, there's probably a group like that you could find. I'm sure you guys are resourceful and you'll figure that out. I just want you to get the most help you can so that you can continue to do this. I have made pillows years ago, and it's very hard to get all the stuffing in the right places. And so tell me about the emotional side of it. You know, we know that it's the labor of love, but tell us about what it means to you to make these bears.
It's sad making these bears, obviously, because it's never something you want to do. It's whenever we hear that we have to make another bear, it's not a good thing. It's always sad, but it's also something good because then you know you can reach out to these families and help them. But it's definitely very, very sad.
Well, I really have a lot of respect for you and your parents doing the work you do. It's Blue Line Bears, so people can find you on Facebook if needed, if unfortunately they have the need for that service. But also just do you accept donations? There has to be costs beyond the uniforms.
We accept donations on our website at bluelinebears.org, and then there's a link there for our GoFundMe, and we take donations there.
Well, good. Well, I will direct people from our website to yours and hope that we can help in any way possible.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy day. I know you went straight from school to track practice to Skyping with us.
Yeah.
So thank your mom, Susie, for making it all work.
For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.